Hello, and welcome to the 2021 Indiana Black Expo Minority Small Business Series presented by KeyBank. The panelists today will provide you with current and up-to-date information on the payroll protection programs, that's PPP, and how to make sure that you are financially ready for existing and upcoming loan opportunities. My name is Denise Hurd, and I'm the founder and president of Hurd Strategies, a full-service public relations firm located in downtown Indianapolis, and I'll be your host for this afternoon's session. I'd like to take a moment to recognize KeyBank, Delta Faucet, Visit Indy, and the Indiana Small Business Development Center, who are our sponsors and partners for this webinar. Before we start, I have just a few housekeeping rules for you. First of all, if you have a question, please type it in the Q&A box and we will answer as many as possible before our session ends. Also, towards the end of the session, there will be a link to the session survey, and that will be placed in the chat box. We ask that you fill out the survey so that you can assist us with planning for future webinars. Now, let's get to our panelists. The panelists for today's session are Juan Gonzalez, who is Market President for Central Indiana KeyBank, Jane Vaninoon, who is a business advisor for the Central Indiana Small Business Development Center, and Michelle Galligan, who is co-founder and managing director of Keep Financials. So let's start by having each panelist tell the audience a little bit about themselves and provide an overview of their expertise on PPP and financial readiness. So Juan, I'm going to start with you. Can you provide me with your perspective on what is happening in the banking industry around PPP and what current and potential applicants should expect?
Yeah, no, first of all, let me say thank you, Denise, for hosting this event, and of course to Indiana Black Expo for once again putting a panel like this together to provide information to our community. Great partnership for sure, and we look forward to many more of these. With regards to your question, you know, PPP is as critical as anything else that has happened in the industry the last 12 months. As you guys are fully aware, round one was very successful for many banks and businesses that got funded, and there is a round two now going on that many of you hopefully are participating on if you meet the qualifications. It is very critical that business take advantage of this opportunity. For two simple reasons. It's not just a way to get some extra help for your payroll and some other expenses, but two, hopefully this will help you prepare and weather the storm. So when things get back to a new normal, all of you and all of us are ready for that new normal. We're seeing great success so far on the program. 70% of the applications have been approved by the SBA. And then I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that during the hour that we have together, but looking forward to it. KeyBank is 100% committed to it. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we were able to support all of our businesses and some new businesses last time around, and we look forward to supporting as many as we can in round two as well. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. So our next guest is Jane Vaninoon, who is a business advisor for the Central Indiana Small Business Development Center. Jane, I am sure that the centers are getting a lot of questions around surrounding the different options for PPP and other SBA loan options. Can you tell us a bit about what's going on out there and what the buzz is these days?
Hi, Denise. Yeah, first off, thanks for hosting this webinar. And yet, you know, I think as you all know, the ISBDC really appreciates its partnership with the IBE. Yeah, we are getting a ton of questions, as you noted. The ISBDC, though, is in I guess I would call a unique situation where, as business advisors, we're helping our clients with a variety of COVID funding programs. So we get a lot of questions about PPP, but then it also ties in with maybe there's a state program right now, Restart grants, that just ended, but we think Restart will do another round. Or you have Idle loans or Idle advances from the SBA. So there's a lot of different funding programs out there, and clients, small businesses are trying to sort it all out and figure out how this all works. And if they get PPP, can they apply for something else? So I think our role is unique in that sense that all of us business advisors here have had to really up our game and learn about all these different funding programs and how they work and what the rules and requirements are. So that's kind of been our role in advising. You know, when it comes to like PPP, we're going to help a client figure out, are they eligible? What are the rules? And then we're going to send them, you know, to Juan at KeyBank or whoever their banker is to actually work through the application process. But
so you all are like the middle person, if you will. So someone would come to you for help and then you could route them to the actual funding source. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep. I look at our role as we're business advisors in a typical normal world. Excuse me, we're helping small businesses with maybe they're starting up or they want to grow. And we are doing those kind of traditional business advising duties, you know, might be market strategy or market research, it might be IT, whatever that issue. Well, now in the COVID world, we're sort of functioning as a liaison to help businesses figure out what the different sources are out there and lead them into the right direction. You know, we help a lot on the front end in terms of, are they eligible for a given program? But since we're not the end all entity that's like administering or funding a program, we, like you said, we sort of send them, then we point them in the right direction of who can ultimately help them with getting that funding. But we can kind of do sort of screening and liaison work on the front end.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so later on in our time together, I want to delve deeper in that to talk about what individuals or businesses need to bring when they come to meet with you all, meet with your organization. And so I encourage everyone that's listening and watching to think about questions that you might have for Jane. If you're interested in PPP or any other funding, you know, and she's that person, her organization is that group that can get you ready to get in front of a lender. Think about the questions that you'd like to have answered, because she's going to have the answers for you. So this is a great opportunity.
We hope.
Right? This is a great opportunity because, you know, a lot of times as business owners, we just don't know. We don't know what we don't know. Like I always say, I can write a great press release, but I don't know anything about financials. So we have a great opportunity here with the people in the finance industry. We have to have our questions asked. So Jane, is there anything else you'd like to add before we move on to Michelle?
I think I would just add, you know, that because there is so much confusion, rules and requirements and things have been changing. This has been a work in process. So sort of my ad is that everybody be patient and understand, you know, what we tell you today could change next month or 2 months from now. And that could be driven by the SBA coming out with new guidelines or Congress passes additional legislation. You know, we've seen that happen a couple times this past year. So we ask everyone to understand that this is an evolving process. This has just been, you know, everyone keeps talking about the word unprecedented, but it has been a really unprecedented year. And so we ask people to kind of stay as up to date as they can and understand that things can and will probably change.
Absolutely. Thank you for that advice, because, you know, as business owners, we want it and we want it right now. We want the answers and we want the answers right now. And this is a constantly moving and evolving topic. So thank you for that.
And we're trying to give people, the best, we're giving you the best answer we have as of today, but just understanding that could potentially change down the road.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jane. So we'll be back to you because
All
I'm
right.
sure people are thinking of questions. And if not, I've got a few for you that will hopefully get the ball rolling. So Michelle, I see you have joined the conversation. So hello there.
Hi, thanks, Denise.
Hello. So you're welcome. So one of the biggest things that keeps us as business owners from receiving loans or being able to apply for loans is that we are not financially ready. And if you're not financially ready, you're not able to take advantage of the lending opportunities that the SBA or any bank has to offer. And so I want you to talk a little bit about the importance of preparedness when
Yeah,
it comes to the lending process.
sure. So my business, Keep Financials, we're a national practice, and we basically function as an outsourced accounting department for small businesses. So we are preparing monthly financials at kind of the minimum services that we do and doing things like AP and AR for businesses. And then we also have some CFO services we provide as well. And one of the things that I had never really considered is if there were a global pandemic, like what would our business be doing that might look different than what it did on a day-to-day basis. And of course, as soon as the pandemic hit, we started getting requests from clients to help them. So a lot of what we've done in specifically this PPP space is helping people understand, in this round, it's really about their eligibility. So what does a 25% decrease in gross receipts on a quarter over quarter basis mean? Like for those people who aren't by nature financial people, which is most of the business owners we serve, that it's complicated and it's confusing. And so what that really means is just, did your business take in 25% less cash in any quarter in 2020 than you did in 2019? So a lot of what we do is dig into that with companies and help them figure out those things, help them figure out things like their monthly payroll so they know how much of a PPP loan to apply for, and then help them with preparedness on the forgiveness side. So, there are certainly more sophisticated clients who are using a lot of financial systems. It's easy to run reports for some of those things, but then there are some people who are really, smaller businesses sometimes just keep track of things in a spreadsheet. So we've been helping clients understand, what do you need to retain as far as documentation for forgiveness, and how do you tell, even if you're just keeping things in a spreadsheet, whether you're able to get forgiveness or not. But then really, as you mentioned, even for future lending opportunities, it's really important to have your financial house in order. So what we try to do is make that process really easy for our clients by making sure that they have financials in a really timely basis at the end of each month and that they mean something. So if clients just take the QuickBooks format for their industry, again, for a non-financial person, that's not always easy to read or to understand. So one of the things that we help clients with is really breaking down maybe your revenue by the types of services or products you have, understanding what the costs are that are going into those to deliver those goods or services, so that you understand, we often run across clients who maybe have been in business for 10 or 15 years and have never broken that down and realize that one of their products or services is not even profitable and it's actually draining money out of the business for all the other ones. So a lot of what we're trying to do is basically, we say we try to help entrepreneurs sleep better at night by helping them really get their head around and understanding their business and prepare for the future, both with being able to be eligible for things like bank loans, but also talking to them about things like having reserves in place just in case something like a global pandemic hits. So I'm happy to dig into any of that more, but that gives you a little bit of an overview of where we've been spending our time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's valuable input. I want to bring all of our guests in so that we can have a bit of a Q&A. There have been some questions put into the Q&A that I want to share with you all. One of the first questions is more of a housekeeping question. Someone has asked, will you all be given the contact information for all of the presenters today? Yes, you will. You will receive in a couple of days all of their contact information and also a link so that you can watch this on your own. So if you don't catch it, or if you miss something today, you'll get a chance to watch it. You'll receive a YouTube link. So don't worry, take good notes, but a video is coming and also the contact information. So I wanted to share that. One of the questions in the Q&A is actually it's for you, Juan, because someone wants to know, does KeyBank work with non-KeyBank customers on the PPP loan?
Thank you, Denise, and thank you for the question. We do work with non-clients. The request though is from Key that they open an account with us though. So and the simple reason for that is because for compliance purposes, we need to know our clients. So that's the requirement. If that makes sense. But yeah, if you are not having any success where you bank today and you need some help, please reach out and we'll be more than happy to help you and support you and walk you through this process.
Thank you. So thank you. Another question that has been asked is, have the tax implications of the PPP been figured out? You know, there was some confusion there. And as we said earlier, it's an ever-moving target, but have the tax implications been sorted through yet?
Yeah, they have. I think to Jane's point, things are ever changing. Especially we saw with the first round of PPP, I felt like we were doing an update every hour on what was happening next. But yes, so the original, what they were originally saying was the IRS didn't allow you to take deductions for the expenses for which you use the PPP, but they have now reversed that. So basically, it will not create a tax implication for any of the PPP money you received.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, can you provide us with some basic guidelines for forgiveness? You know, because forgiveness has many different interpretations and meanings. So what is a general principle we should follow when it comes to seeking PPP forgiveness?
So I think Juan's probably best to answer this question, but I did also want to note that we have a one-pager on forgiveness that's going to go out to everybody, as well as a one-pager on the PPP round 2 eligibility at a high level. But Juan, since you're handling this every day, I'll let you take that question.
No, I was hoping Michelle will run with it. No, to be honest, forgiveness is not only an ever-changing thing, but the rules have changed a little bit in the last few weeks with the round 2 PPP and what can be included for round 1. And if it's 150,000 or less, the loan amount that you secure on round 1 now, the rules are different. Actually, it's probably going to be forgiven automatically. So, I mean, again, we're working on a template too. We don't have it out there yet, but we will soon, where we'll have a template for people to fill up. But please feel good about this. There's still plenty of time for forgiveness. I think our message today, if there is anything I can say, Denise, over and over and over, we want every business that is watching to please make sure that you can take advantage of this second round. There's still a lot of funds left. The American Banker National Magazine last week put an article out there saying that there were only $103 billion given out of the $285 billion. So there is still more than 50% of the funding, if you will, available for businesses. The requirements that they actually put in this second round are actually helping small businesses more than none. So we want to make sure that we probably spend a little bit time on that. So Jane and Michelle probably are dealing with a lot of those little questions. That 25% revenue thing that sounds so simple, it has become so complicated. Even though, of course, I'm in banking, I deal with financials all the time, so I see the numbers and I'm like, oh, of course that makes sense. Well, business owners are not dealing with that every day, so they're asking a lot of questions, and we want to make sure that they take advantage of programs like this so they can get the funding. They also added more than just payroll for that funding. So Michelle and Jenny, we can talk a little bit about that too. What can be included? That's significant. It's a big differentiator from round 1 to round 2. So I'll stop there, Denise, because I can go on and on and on, and I want to make sure Michelle and Jane help us.
Yeah, go a little deeper into that. Like, what else is eligible in round 2? And then also, if you could address this question as well, if you received a PPP during round 1, can you apply again for round 2?
Yeah, I'll answer the last one quickly and then let Jane and Michelle talk about the details. Yes, the answer is yes. You're eligible. As long as you meet the criteria, you can apply for it. Even if you haven't gotten the first loan forgiven, you still are eligible to apply as long as you meet the criteria. So I'll stop there, and then Jane and Michelle, you know the details better than I do.
So thank you so much, Juan. I want to reiterate what Juan just said. So if you received a PPP during round one, yes, you are eligible for round two. And a lot of banks are not accepting forgiveness applicants right now. And so therefore you're in a quandary about what do I do because I still have this other loan that's not forgiven yet. You can go ahead and apply for round two as long as you meet the criteria. So that's a big relief for a lot of business owners, knowing that they're still eligible. So thank you for addressing that. But let's go back to the previous other additional details or information, things that are eligible in the second round. Is what where we stopped.
Okay, so
Jane, you want to take that?
well, yeah, I was gonna say, do you want to go back a little bit about the loan forgiveness
Yes.
piece? Okay. So first I was going to say, we have done one webinar on the loan forgiveness process. So we will probably be doing another one soon with the ISBDC. So I would encourage everyone to keep an eye out for that, because it is can be a complicated process, that it's not, just a simple, quick answer. But, kind of in general, the big picture is to get your loan forgiven, there's 60% of that loan needs to have gone toward your payroll costs. And then the other 40% can be used, of that loan proceeds can be used for things like rent, utilities, mortgage payment. There's various categories. And this December 27th legislation added some additional categories, things like if you incurred expenses for PPE, or if you had some expenses from damage from the riots this summer, some of those things will now qualify within that 40%. So it's basically you get a loan and then your covered period starts and you have 24 weeks of incurring expenses that you then can use to apply for forgiveness. And to Juan's point, the regs changed this summer so that your PPP loan is deferred for 10 months plus that 24-week covered period. So you basically have 16 months. That's like a year and a half almost before you need to apply for forgiveness. So I think that's a really critical point, as Juan pointed out, that like you don't have to stress and worry right now. Even if you got a loan last April, right at the very beginning of PPP round one, you still have until this fall before to get, and technically you can apply for forgiveness all the way to the maturity of your loan. I mean, you don't really ideally want to have to start repaying on your loan and then apply for forgiveness, but worst case scenario, you can. So you have a lot of time.
And something that we're talking to people a lot about in preparation for forgiveness is to start retaining the documents you're going to need to file with the bank for forgiveness. So even if right now that looks like keeping a folder on your desk that you're throwing rent invoices and utility bills into, or if you have a payroll company and they're sending you payroll reports, make sure you're saving those. If your 24-week period falls in any way, like kind of off of the dates that you have for your 24 weeks of forgiveness, because it doesn't always line up exactly, your payroll company will be happy to help you run those reports for the 24-week period if you just request those from them. And often the payroll reports have employee counts on them, which makes it really nice to look at for the FTE reduction requirements and making sure that everything is in line there. But from a preparedness standpoint, just, for people who aren't maybe great about organizing and filing invoices for their business expenses, this would be the time to start getting those in order and making sure that you have them ready. Another thing that as you're trying to kind of calculate what your forgiveness looks like, some banks are being a little bit more specific about entity names and making sure that your business entity matches the bills that you have. So now would be the time if your internet is in your personal name instead of in your business name, get some of those things in order, which is a thing that we see a lot of, so that it makes it a really clean, easy process. The other thing I would say is we've had a few examples of businesses who have used really almost the entire PPP loan just for payroll. And so if that's the situation you're in, when you go to apply for forgiveness, because that was really the intent of this, is to protect payroll, that if you can cover 100% of it with payroll, that actually makes for a very, very easy forgiveness process with the bank.
Yeah.
The other thing I just wanted to mention, going back to that tax implication question, I know we were talking specifically about PPP, but I did want to bring up that if you get grants, that grants are taxable income. And so that is something that you're going to want to report to your tax accountant. So if you got an EIDL advance grant, or if you got any type of other like small business relief grant, you'll want to make sure that your tax person is aware of those.
Thank you. So someone would like to know, in applying for an SBA loan or grant, does it help to be SBA 8A certified?
So let me answer that the best possible way. The answer is no. I mean, it helps in the sense that being certified is going to force you to have a bunch of reporting and financials and things like that in order to go apply for the loan through a bank. But that doesn't guarantee that you're going to get it. You still have to meet the SBA loan bank criteria, you will, regardless if you're certified or not, right? So, and I think the other thing that people need to understand, this PPP program is for anyone, right? So if that person is talking about being AA certified to apply for PPP, then that's a whole another no, right? Anyone can apply for PPP as long as they meet the criteria, as long as they pay taxes, as long as they've been in business before February 20, I think was the day. Let me double check here.
15.
I think it's February 15. I'm sorry, February 15 of last year. So that's something, Denise, I think people get confused. If you started the business after February 15 or 2020, you're not eligible for PPP, because the goal of PPP was to help businesses with payroll. So when the COVID and the crisis hit, so it's a long answer to the question, but I guess, you know, it helps in the sense that you have a lot of paperwork in order. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get a regular SBA loan per se.
Thank you. And, you know, and Juan, you must have been in the Q&A, because someone asked the question. They literally said, I opened my business in Q2 of 2019. So they opened their business in Q2 of 2019. Are they eligible for round two? Yes, they would be. Yes.
As long as you were in business before February 15 or 2020, you are eligible. For PPP round one and PPP round two. I mean, just because we're on round two doesn't mean if you didn't get round one, you still can apply for round one. It's just, you know, if you didn't use a bank before, then you still have to follow all the procedures and all the criteria from round one, which is a little different than round two, but you still can apply for round one if you didn't do any of that. So for that person in particular, I don't know if they applied for round one or not. Sounds like they didn't, but Michelle, if I say something wrong, please, you're the expert on financials, so make sure that you correct me.
Right, so just to get those dates down, it's February 9th of 2019 and February 15th of 2020 for round two. So round one was, the cutoff date was February 9th, 2019?
No, February 15 or 2020 for all. You have to be in business by February 15 or 2020 or before. Yeah.
For all. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. Thank you. So another question that has come in is, as a new business, I don't have taxes from last year, but I still need to have my payroll for my 10 employees in order to service my community. What do I do?
So the great news is no one has their taxes done for last year yet. So, and you know, part of the like records you can submit. So there are really kind of two ways to look at this. So even if you don't have your taxes, it doesn't have to be a tax loss year over year. You can actually just show that you had a decrease in the payments your business received for any quarter in 2020 compared to the same quarter in 2019. So if you take the fourth quarter, for example, so if you from October 1st to December 31st had a 25% decrease in your incoming revenue that you received from customers in that time period over 2019, there are a couple of different ways you can submit that information to the bank. So some banks will just take your financials. If you can just show a comparison of your financials from 2020 to 2019 that shows a 25% decrease. The other thing you could do is actually just do bank statements for your business account. So if your checking account for your business shows, on all of your checking accounts, you have the amount of money that was deposited and the amount was withdrawn. So you pull your October, November, December for 2020, and add those up. And if they're 25% less than your October, November, December of 2019, that should also work.
Thank you. Thank you. So there's a question, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding the question and asking the question properly. But it says, we saw a downturn in January and need the PPP, but they're looking at 2020 and 2019 info. So if the downturn happened in January, would you be eligible? Is that outside of the 25% decrease in the time period?
Are they saying January 2020 or January 2021? Like,
let's just say hypothetically, they're thinking 2021 is when they saw the downturn.
Yeah, so the
Michelle,
answer is
like,
no, right?
yeah, I would say no.
no.
I let Michelle reiterate. I thought she did a good job of.
Yeah, the answer is no. Now, I do think that there's a possibility we're going to see some additional stimulus and possibly even an extension of PPP. So, you know, it is possible that there will be a round 3 that will start to cover 2021, but round 2 is really for 2020 results over 2019.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this.
Yeah, Denise, and just to help there, because the person asked for one particular month, and I think Michelle was very, very candid to use the October to December. It has to be a quarter, a quarter in 2020 versus a quarter in 2019, whatever that quarter is for the business. So
Right.
we were thinking that the majority of businesses were going to use second quarter because, you know, April, May, you know, that's when things really went, the shutdowns and all of that. But as Michelle said, you know, people are using all different quarters depending on what the business cycle looks like. So,
well, a moment of transparency. We saw a decrease, but our decrease came in Q3. And we actually saw a 52% decrease in revenues, which was really shocking because we were still pressing forward, but we saw a shift in our business. And it didn't happen until Q3, Q1 and 2, we were fine. And then there was the unrest and a lot of shifts in the world, and we saw a shift. So it can happen in any quarter, which is why it's important to keep your finger on the pulse of your financials, you know, so that you can truly see, you know, where you're generating revenue, where the losses are coming, and be, you know, fiscally knowledgeable. Someone asked the question, does PPP address nonprofit fundraising loss in any way?
So I work with a couple of nonprofits who applied for PPP loans. And again, it was really just based on this gross receipts. So if they had a fundraising loss that was 25% for a quarter from over 2020 over 2019, then they're eligible for PPP. So we worked with a number of nonprofits who filed. We have several who filed for round 1, have gotten forgiveness for round 1, and have now filed for round 2 and gotten approved for round 2.
Very good. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, so there's still some questions about the forgiveness information and the requirement for round 1 and the guidelines between round 1 and 2. So that may involve a handout with more instructions. And I think that's coming, Michelle. You said there's a handout that's going to be.
We have one that's going to be circulated after this.
Okay.
Do we have any specific questions related to the forgiveness?
Well, I think any insight that you all can provide as like based on you all being subject matter experts, is there something that leaps off the page that seems very different between round 1 and round 2 that businesses should be aware of when it comes to the application process?
So do you mean applying for a loan, a difference between round 1 and round 2, or forgiveness for?
Let's say applying first.
Just the difference is kind of what we've all been discussing, where there's additional requirements now for round 2, where you've got to have that 25%, demonstrate that 25% decline in your quarterly gross receipts. And again, requiring that you've already, I think the number of employees has been decreased. So round 1, went up to businesses 500 employees or less. And now for round 2, it's 300 is the cutoff for businesses. There's also I've been on some webinars with tax attorneys, and they've really emphasized for round two, there's what they're calling the economic necessity test, where you're certifying that you really need this additional round, the second draw of PPP to keep, they're calling it sustaining the ongoing sustainability of your business. So if you're a business where your revenues are exceeding your expenses and you're making some money, maybe you're not as profitable as you were, but say you are profitable, some of the tax attorneys have concerns that you should not apply for a round two. So that's a little different. They're really trying to target this round two for businesses that are still really struggling from the pandemic, as it should. Yeah. Forgiveness, I was going to say, I don't think we know. It doesn't appear to me there's going to be a lot of difference in the process from round one to round two on how you do forgiveness, but we really haven't gotten that far, obviously.
Okay.
I think another thing to note too is that a lot of people got, I think, a little confused for smaller businesses where the owner is the primary person running the business and then maybe has like, an assistant or an intern or just another worker or two, that there is a cap on the owner's compensation. So even after they extended that 8-week period originally in round one to 24 weeks, there was still a cap on owner's comp of, I think it's $20,583. So basically what they were doing was allowing some of owner's comp to be reimbursed, but not a full 24 weeks if you're on the higher end of owner's comp. And then there's still the employee cap for your payroll that employees making over $100,000, that it caps out at $100,000 per employee to be reimbursed.
Perfect. Someone asked, if you use subcontractors, PPP isn't available. Are there any other programs for assistance?
So the reason subcontractors aren't eligible for PPP coverage is because they can actually apply on their own for their own PPP loans. And so, if you're a business owner and you use 1099 contractors in your business, I would just encourage those people to then apply for their own PPP loans. And that way they'll still get covered, but it doesn't have to be under your business. The other thing, that I know we've touched on a couple of times is there are some different grant opportunities out there depending on the industry your business is in. We're starting to see some interesting ones for like venues and the arts world. There are some additional, specifications for restaurant industry. If you're a restaurant, you have some additional options. So I'd encourage everyone to, work with your local small business center to make sure you understand the range of things out there. But if you do have 1099s and they're asking about that, or that's a concern for you, I would just encourage them to directly look at the PPP.
Okay. So Juan, this question is for you. If you did not get the first loan, can you apply now? And then what is the wait time for when you can apply for the second round? And the question is for Schedule C contract without employees. So
yes, you can apply for it. You didn't get it in round one, you can still apply it for round one PPP. There is no waiting time. I mean, if you're eligible, and you just gotta apply at your local bank or whoever you're working with. For PPP round two, same thing. I mean, you're eligible. You don't have to apply for round one to get eligibility for round two. So let's make sure that people take advantage of the program if they qualify. The question about the Schedule C, I think I'll let Michelle or Jane talk about that, because that's a technical question. I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to answer it wrong. So Michelle, I don't know if you captured the question.
Yeah.
So is this the question of when can you apply if you have Schedule C income?
I guess so. It just says the question.
I just looked at the chat to try to make sure I understood the question. So I think that's what it is. And the answer is you can apply anytime. If you didn't do a first round PPP, you can still apply anytime for that Schedule C. If you're your Schedule C as a contractor, there is some specific information that you can go ahead and apply anytime for that round two.
Awesome. Okay. If you did not apply and thus did not receive round one, do you still have to show a difference between your quarters in round two. And the reason why the question is being asked is that this person started their business in 2019. So I guess they're showing their business in 2019. They're applying now, but the criteria states that you have to show a 25% decrease between quarters, but they started in October of 2019. So will
Okay.
they still have to show that in order to be eligible?
So the reg is, so first off, did they already get a first round PPP? What's the question? I mean, if they haven't done a first
They haven't
draw,
done a first draw, no.
so they would go ahead with their first draw, and that does not even have that 25%
Right,
requirement.
right.
But just to kind of answer hypothetically, if say they had already gotten a first draw, now they want to get a second draw, and they had just started their business in the fourth quarter of 2019, the reg allows you to, for those type of businesses, you can need to demonstrate a quarterly decline from the second, third, or fourth quarter of 2020 compared to the first quarter of 2020. So if you're able to demonstrate that 25% or greater decline from any of those quarters compared to the first, then they would be eligible for round two.
So to make sure we're all, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, to make sure we're all understanding, if this is your first time applying or your first draw, you do not have to show the decrease. The 25% decrease will not be a requirement for your application. If this is your second time around applying, then you will have to show the 25% decrease for a quarter. The quarterly comparison. Okay.
Correct. And the legislation does have a provision in there for businesses that were not operating for the full year of 2019.
Okay.
Would allow them to, instead of comparing one quarter over to the prior year quarter, it will enable them to compare to the first quarter of 2020 if they were not operational for all of 2019.
But is that the second, is that?
That's for the second, that would be for a second draw.
Okay, thank you. So I hope that clarifies that.
It's confusing, yeah.
So there's a question, and I think we've addressed this, but I want to hit it one more time. Can you seek partial forgiveness for things like office rent? You know, yes.
The short answer is yes. So we have a lot of clients who are actually only getting partial forgiveness on their round one. And many of those are because they ended up laying off employees, so they don't have as many payroll costs. Mm-hmm. That then decreases the amount that they can be forgiven on the loan as a whole. Mm-hmm. So yeah, absolutely. Like there are going to be, it could be partial rent expenses, partial utilities, but we have a lot of clients who are experiencing partial forgiveness. And then what happens is that, the remainder of that loan will be set on a 1% interest rate for a term of either 2 years or 5 years, depending on what date you filed your PPP round one. However, there is a provision that if you're in that 2-year period of time for repayment, that you can go back and ask the bank to put that on a 5-year term instead.
Okay. Let's see. Someone asks, so did you say if you received a grant, it is taxable? Is the whole thing taxable?
Yes. So unless there is some sort of legislature in your state that's specifically related to that grant that excludes it from being taxable, grant income is taxable.
Great, thank you. So this is an interesting question. So if you received round one in January 2021, when are you eligible to apply for round two?
So I would think you'd be eligible to apply for it any time, but you probably wouldn't want to because they're not going to allow you to double dip on forgiveness. Mm-hmm. So I would think that unless you can get into that 8-week period to use your full round one, you would want to, and then you could maybe in week 9 apply for round two, assuming that the PPP loans are still open. But there have been some pretty clear guidelines that you can't double dip on expenses for the payroll protection program.
Yeah, I was going to add that the legislation's written, it states, like to Juan's earlier point, you don't have to have round one forgiven, but it does state that your round one PPP, you have to have used all of those proceeds, meaning, used it on payroll, used it on rent, and all of those things. So that just ties in with what Michelle's saying. You're probably going to have at least 8 weeks in there of spending that money before you can then apply for round 2. So like, depending when you got round 1, like in January, you could run out of that. You could be hitting up on that March 31st deadline, but if you can get all that money spent in time, then you could go ahead.
Okay. So throughout our conversation, we've said you've had to be in business. You've had to be in business. And by a specific date. And so one of the questions that has come up is, how are we defining in business? Because, a lot of times as business owners, we're running and we're doing our thing, but then maybe several months down the road is when we go to the Secretary of State and we get, registered, with the state, when we get our LLC or sole proprietorship, when we get our EINs. How are we defining in business? Does that mean the date that we were incorporated as an entity?
I mean, Jen and Michelle, you guys are more technical than I am, but yes, you have to be incorporated. You have a tax ID number. I mean, this comes back to like, you got to be able to prove that you've been paying taxes. So the day you get the tax ID number, on your tax returns, it says very clear on the top right, I guess, day of incorporation. So make sure that you follow those numbers, I guess.
Yeah, I would think that it's probably the articles of incorporation. In some cases, you're going to have an LLC that doesn't have its own tax ID. That's just a pass through to the owner in some cases, if you're a sole proprietor. But a lot of times, if you've got the articles of incorporation, you're still going to have a bank account in that name. So, if you think about it, working backwards from a forgiveness standpoint, you've got to be in business to have payroll for the employees. And you've got to be in business to have things like rent payments or utility bills in the business's name that you need to get reimbursed for. So, in addition, probably to kind of this, specific articles of incorporation, it's, do you have business activity happening? I know that was a requirement for business. When you look at the PPP forgiveness, one of the things they also want to make sure that you didn't completely shut down your business. So they want to see that you're still paying utilities or paying rent or have some sort of other expenses going out to show that your business is still alive, basically.
Very good. So I hope that makes that clear. Yes, it is when you became incorporated as an entity, that's paramount.
Denise, I will add to that the SBA, this second round, they're actually doing a lot of due diligence with the applications coming from the bank. That's why, they created a different system. It goes to this cloud and they go and almost double check everything to make sure that the data is correct and the validation process that they call. So, I mean, they really put some more safeguards to make sure that there was not as much fraud as there was in round 1 and abuse of the system, if you will. So I can assure you they're looking at all of that. And so make sure that you have your paperwork in order to make sure that you can be eligible for this program.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so is there a difference in the PPP that comes directly from this SBA or a financial institution? Is it all the same?
So it is not a financial institution program. It's an SBA program, a federal program. So it's funded by the federal government. It's not funded by the banks. The SBA asks the banks to manage the program because the infrastructure, the logistics, we banks have that in place to be able to process the volume of applications that will come through. But let's make it clear, this is a federal program. It's funded by the federal government. That's why Congress had to approve the appropriations that goes to this program. It's not a bank program per se. So hopefully that answers the question.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. So I want to go back to a question that we discussed earlier about the downturn, that, there was a business that was in business and that they're feeling the downturn in January of 2021, but the actual financial impact occurred in they had a downturn in November and December of 2020, and they're feeling the effects of it in 2021. And so they're hoping, but their deposits don't reflect that downturn. You know, there was, so there, I guess there was a shift in the financials towards the end of the year. Their financials seemed healthy, but the effects of the shift are impacting them now. Would they be eligible?
So they're not eligible. If the gross receipts they were receiving into the business in November and December were not a drop from 2019, then they won't be eligible. And this is really kind of, I think what you're talking about is a result of probably payment cycles. So if they sent out invoices in September and October, that when business was still healthy and they received that money in November and December, and then it started to drop. Unfortunately, this program doesn't cover that because it's really looking for that decrease in payments coming into the business in that fourth quarter as the last quarter that's available.
Okay.
Yeah, and Denise, if I can kind of chime in, this might be where the state of Indiana's program, which is the Restart Grant program, this might be where it comes in because, yeah, they're clearly not eligible right now as it stands for PPP, but the Restart Grant program is looking at monthly revenue and monthly declines year over year in that revenue. So unfortunately, right now, the latest round of Restart has ended. That ended in January, but we expect another one to open up again soon. And so that may be covered, you know, the last round covered through 2020, but if they open up another round, that will probably start covering months in 2021. So I think for this particular client, that might be the type of thing they need to be looking toward other programs to help them out other than PPP.
Okay. And if you're a single, like a sole proprietor, are you eligible to apply for PPP or do you have to have employees?
Nope, you're eligible.
Yep. As long as you've been in business by, what's that date again? February
15, 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
2020, you're good. So, you know, please don't let you being the only person in your business inhibit you from applying. You are eligible. Let's see. Someone asks, when will loan numbers be validated in order for you to ask for forgiveness? I've tried to apply, but it states that my loan number can't be validated, can't be verified.
Yeah, I don't know the answer for the question, the specifics of it, because every bank is a little different. But what I can tell you, though, is most of us are not processing much of forgiveness right now because all the resources are working on the second round. And that might be not the answer that this person is looking for, but I can assure you that because there's so much time left to do the forgiveness. And again, they changed some things that you can incorporate now from round one that were not allowed before. So there is probably a benefit for this company to wait and make sure that they understand what they can include. Because just by decreasing from 85% to 60% the amount of payroll that you have to put on round one, that opens the door for some other expenses to be included. So again, you know, everybody is different, but I know as a general rule, most of us are just waiting on those forgiveness templates while we process round two. Is the most important thing right now.
But there are some financial institutions that have processed forgiveness. Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah, because you were able to start before, right? So we processed some, they went to the SBA, they validated some. There were some that they sent questions back and say, hey, we need proof of this and this and that. Remember in round one, a lot of bigger companies were eligible to apply. So there were loans up to $10 million that were eligible for PPP funding. This second round, they lowered that to $2 million. So again, they tried to put more safeguards to emphasize the need for small and medium businesses to get the help. But to your point, there was a lot of those loans that were already forgiven, and some of those that were in process that we've been telling people just wait, because again, they changed the definition. So you might be able to include new things from round one on the forgiveness piece that you didn't think you could before. So. And then Jane and Michelle, I don't know if I'm saying something different than what you guys are hearing, but But again, the 150,000 and below is going to be a very simple process for what we understand is going to be like almost like a one-page template, which basically you just got to guarantee that the information is correct, right? That's how I kind of simplified. Yeah.
Yep, that's what we're hearing as well.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say the form's actually out there. It's that form 3508S that previously it was for 50,000 or below was the cutoff, and they're just using that same form now and saying if your loan's 150,000 or below, this is what you use. And Juan's correct. It's like one page filling out some numbers and then a page of sort of initialing certifications. And I guess I would circle back a little where they're saying their loan number is not verified. I really haven't heard of that scenario, but my experience thus far has been if your bank is processing forgiveness, you know, it's kind of out there. It's either on their website or they may have reached out to you already as someone who has a loan with them to say, hey, we're processing forgiveness now. For example, my husband owns a business. That's one of the reasons I've ended up in this role as a business advisor. And his PPP loan, we got it forgiven last fall. It was his bank literally was sending out emails to everybody once they started processing. So I think, you know, Juan is right. Like most of the banks now are focused on round two. So just sit tight when they're ready to start doing forgiveness. They'll probably be reaching out to you or have information on their website.
And that's very true. My bank, we were able to apply for forgiveness, and then we received an email a couple weeks later saying they weren't taking any more applications for forgiveness because they were focused on round two. So, you know, so it just depends on your financial institution, but stay vigilant though, like pay attention to the communication coming out. You know, and I think I probably know the answer to this question, but I'm going to let our experts answer. If you did not get a loan the first time around, you were denied, can you apply again?
I'll tell you, I mean, I would say if you didn't get a loan the first time, you probably are not going to get it the second time. But I think, you know, Juan, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you could certainly apply again and see what happens. But
I would actually,
yeah.
We had a client recently who did the same thing with an Idle loan, that they were denied the first time around and then reached out to the SBA office and ended up getting approval about a month ago for the Idle loan after, you know, having not been approved for 9 months or whatever it is. So, you know, your banker can probably guide you through that a little better, but I would certainly recommend at least exploring the option.
Yeah, you can try.
Yeah, what I was going to add, Jane, was, and Michelle and Denise, is that, you know, why was that person denied, right? Like, I mean, the bank that person went to, they should be able to help you with that answer. Was it an issue that, you know, that SBA needs to fix? Because Michelle is right. We had a couple of clients on round one that they were not going to get it because there was an issue with the SBA system as a whole, the way the number was coming in. So our bank had to contact the SBA directly, and they fixed it, and then it got through. But again, you got to get that extra help there. So if you have the information of what you were denied, then any of us could probably take a quick look and let you know. But I will encourage you to try again as long as you fit the requirements.
Thank you. So if you've applied for round two, how long in January, you know, how long is the wait before the funds or the response will be received?
And I'm guessing the approval is what they're probably referring to.
Yes, the approval.
So there is not a perfect answer to that. And it's unfortunate because I know people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but some of those deals have been going through in 48 hours and they got approved through the system. Some of them have been waiting 3 weeks and I still say that it's under review by the SBA. So just to give you a little bit of color, I guess, behind this, you know, the bank is taking the application, you know, we verify the information, we approve it internally, then we submit the files to the SBA. There's a new system they created, like a cloud system, if you will. And then the SBA double check the information. Ideally, all the numbers, everything matches, boom, it goes through quickly. In some cases, we're hearing from the SBA that they're finding glitches on the validation codes and some of the numbers. So now they're stuck in this review process. The banks have not really a way to look exactly what the error is. So we're communicating with the SBA on a regular basis to say, hey, how can we help you fix this? And they're working through it. I know that doesn't answer the question the right way, but I know 70% of the PPP loans round 2 have been approved, but there is still a 30% number out there that is still under review. We think there is plenty of money and they should be all okay, but just know that it is not truly the bank's fault. You know, I know we take the blame for a lot, but in this case, we're trying to communicate that we're working with the SBA to make sure it gets fixed ASAP so people can get their funding.
Very good. Very good. Is there a certain criteria for automatic forgiveness of your loan? Is there a way to just get it automatically forgiven?
I don't think it's automatic at all, but I think the 150 and below, the 150,000 and below, that one pager is almost as automatic as it's going to come, right? I mean, it's a very simple page for people to just initial, put the numbers and go through. But again, Jane and Michelle, you probably have more data on that.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, it's automatic in the sense of that form is very simplified and that's an easier process, which on the form, you know, they have to understand they are certifying that they use those loan proceeds for, you know, the appropriate expenses, the 60% toward payroll. That's what the program was set up for, that you're using this money toward keeping your payroll. And then the other 40% for the other eligible expenses. So you are certifying to all of those things. So it's not just an automatic, I took the money and was able to go buy a new Ford 150, you know, truck or something. You're certifying you did certain things with it. And yeah, if it's small enough, it's a pretty simple process.
And I would say, while there's not like an automatic, you know, like you're just automatically forgiven, the easiest way to be forgiven is the more you use on payroll, you know, and the less you're putting through other expenses, the easier it's going to be. If you use 100% of your loan for payroll, that makes it really easy because you're really submitting mostly just a payroll report, and the cleaner your records are. So if you can submit the reports that really support your forgiveness on the first try, that process has happened very quickly for our clients who've been able to do that.
Very good. If you're a business owner and you're trying to grow your business, are there other SBA loans that are being processed or you can apply for, or is the SBA just really focused on PPP and Idle right now?
The answer is yes. There are plenty of options. So I mean, the SBA program is actually probably the most successful federal program that the government has. It's self-funded actually to a point of success, but there are 3 types of loans that we do all the time: the 7As, you know, the SBA 7A, there's the SBA 504, and then what we call the express SBA loans, you know, anything 350,000 and below. But yeah, there is business as usual, right? They still have the business is open for all of you guys that are expanding or looking to buy a business or looking to buy real estate, whatever the case is, equipment. Those regular programs are still available. You know, at the same time that PPP is happening, one doesn't take from the other, I guess.
Right.
The money is not the same, so it's separate buckets.
Right. So the answer would be yes. You know, the SBA is and the SBA is a great resource for business owners. So I encourage you, for all the business owners that are watching today and listening today, to, you know, make friends with the SBA and visit their website and go through some of their tutorials and workshops. They're very hands-on and they have so many resources for us and can answer a lot of questions that we have when we're not sure of who to go to. Trust me when I say the SBA has the answers. So please, you know, keep their website in your bookmarks and use them as a resource for your entire journey as a business owner. You will find them to be an awesome, awesome resource for you as you grow, scale, pivot, everything that you need for your organization. There's a question in the chat about taxes. So if you didn't always put your business on your taxes, does that weigh bad on your chance to apply for a PPP?
The answer is, if you're a sole proprietor looking to apply for a PPP, the answer is yes. So the way it would be calculated is by taking the average monthly income from your Schedule C from your taxes.
Mhm.
So if you're not claiming your business income on your taxes, then you can't take a PPP loan against that business.
Thank you. And so this person actually applied for an EIDLE. And so if you've applied for an EIDLE and either received or your application is in process, or if you've been denied, can you apply for a PPP loan?
Yes. Yeah, the two programs are not mutually exclusive. So you can apply for both a PPP and an EIDLE loan. And to the person's question too, who was looking about or was asking about SBA programs for lending, and if those are still open, which as Juan said, there are many different programs available through the SBA. I just want to give a quick example of, we had a business we work with looking for additional working capital and applied last Thursday for an EIDLE loan, and the application was approved that night and funded today. So it seems like a quick turnaround. And as far as loans for small businesses go, it's $150,000 on a 3.75% interest rate for 30 years. So if you're looking for a loan for your business, those are really competitive terms. And I would encourage, before those applications are no longer being accepted, that if that's something that you're considering, to probably try to do that sooner than later.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So another question. So Jane, you touched briefly on the Restart, the Restart grants. And so that's a statewide initiative, correct?
Yes, correct. That's a program that basically it's related to the CARES Act, in that it's CARES Act funding that went to the states that enabled them to create this program, but it's administered at the state level by the Indiana Economic Development Center. Mm-hmm. And we've been involved with it in the sense of providing additional resources and support to help clients with and answering questions and what they need to do in terms of documentation and whatnot to apply for it, and are they eligible. Okay. And they've done 2 rounds of it. It's kind of been similar to PPP, where they've opened it up, you apply, and then they have an end date. So the last round just ended on January 22nd, but we anticipate they'll probably open up another round in March.
So every county in the state, every county in the state has access to the Restart grants.
Correct.
And so to get the information, would that be on inbiz.gov where you would find the information?
There should be a link to it, but Denise, I could send you the actual website. It's backontrack.gov is actually the website. Is so if you go to in.gov, then there's a link from there, but I can send you the direct address for that. Yeah.
So let's make sure when we send out the contact information, we send out that information for the Restart grant as well. And then everyone will have access to it, since our audience spreads throughout the entire state of Indiana.
Sure.
And sometimes maneuvering through a website is not easy. So let's just
I'll send you that, and then we can get that out to everybody.
Okay. So there's a business owner who says that they're a minority-owned business and not considered running their business like in a low-income area, and they seem to not be meeting some of the qualifications of that. And so, is there a workaround for their type of business? They feel as though they're falling through the cracks, basically, when it comes to applying for loans and seeking funding. And so, Jane, I think that's where your organization may be able to assist with some one-on-one.
Yeah, and if they're in a targeted low-income area, they might actually, this latest round of the EIDLE advance is being, it was very narrow requirements for targeted low-income communities. I mean, that might even be something, depending where they're located. The EIDLE advance is up to $10,000. It's $1,000 per employee, up to $10,000 max, and that's totally forgivable. It's just a grant. So that could possibly be something, or they can just contact us and we can get more specifics on their situation.
But Denise, let me say something that just to make it very clear. So just because you're a minority-owned business, you're not disqualified for this. Just because your business is located on a LMI area, low moderate income area, you're not disqualified for this. So please, if that's the answer you're getting, reach out to any of us. You actually need some some extra legal advice and all of those things. But that shouldn't be a reason why you're not getting the PPP loan or any kind of loan, to be honest. So hopefully that person reaches out to one of us, or you, Denise, or IB. But the way I interpret the question is totally different, and that's not. There's no reason why people should be denied because of that. So.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
that shouldn't be just that criteria. Yeah, there has to be.
So we've talked a bit about the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, EIDL, the Idle Loan. Can you all talk a little bit more about the SBA Idle Loan and, and just a little, paint a bigger picture about the Idle for us?
Sure. So if people want to go to just the SBA website, so sba.gov, and then use their little search bar and put EIDL is the link that you can go and you can apply and get more information about it. But the intention of it is that it's used for working capital for your business. So they left the uses of the loan very broad. It is a loan, so there's no part of it that is forgivable. So it's not like the PPP in that regard. But the intention, and I'll tell you the terms again, because they wanted to make sure that it's something that would be easily repaid over a longer period of time. So it is on a 30-year term. It is up to $150,000, and it's a 3.75% interest rate. So what that works out to is about a $700 a month payment for a $150,000 loan. And it's a really streamlined, simple process. So I'm going to guess behind the scenes, the SBA probably verifies your EIN, make sure you actually have a bank account. I think they probably look to make sure you don't, they probably run your credit report, but it doesn't feel to me like there's a super extensive underwriting process because of the speed at which that they're approving them. But it is a great loan program that is still available. And can be used for working capital. Again, one of the main differences between that and PPP is that it has no forgivable element to it.
It's a loan.
Yeah, I would just chime in. I had mentioned earlier, there is something called an idle advance, and that is totally repayable. That was something that they did last spring, kind of in reaction to COVID. So just want to emphasize to people, they understand there was the program that was an advance. That is totally, you don't have to repay. And then there's the loan program.
Mm-hmm.
So, sometimes.
Yeah, and that one was, Jane, that was $10,000, right? Like they were giving.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right.
And
those
now
are forgiven now.
Yeah. And now, as I mentioned, this new legislation is bringing back the idle advance, and it's much more targeted for low income communities. Mm-hmm. So there's stricter requirements, but that again would be up to $10,000. So when people talk to friends of friends and they hear of someone that got something, you have to make sure you're really clear. We had a client, she thought she got an idle advance and it ended up it's a loan.
Mm-hmm. So, okay.
Hey, Denise, one thing to clarify, I think Michelle was very clear on what the program is for, but that one is done by the SBA directly. It's mm-hmm. not done by the banks, just to make, it's a big difference. So they had to go to the website, to the sba.gov and go through the process there. Don't go to your bank for it because we cannot do anything with that one.
Right. And so to be clear, the PPP loan, you can apply for a PPP loan through your financial institution and the SBA.
You have to, yeah.
No. So only a financial institution for the PPP loan, correct?
Right. And correct.
The EIDLE, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, is only through the SBA.
Correct.
Thank you. That was a question that was in the chat. Who do I go to for what?
Right.
So if you want a PPP, go to your financial institution, which goes back to something Michelle was talking about earlier about having a relationship with an accounting firm, a bank, because it just makes it so much easier. And then also when you're trying to get your financial house in order to apply, if you've had those relationships, they can help you put all that together and help you with your application too. So the bank or financial institution for PPP, the SBA for the EIDLE, but the PPP is SBA funding. It's funded by the SBA. So that's they're the overarching source for the funding that we're receiving as business owners as a part of the CARES Act. So, okay.
And that's why the intent of the program is to be forgiven, right?
Right.
Banks, we're for-profit organizations, so we're not going to do loans to forgive them. I mean, there's
Right.
a business model there that will work for the bank. So that's, yeah. I mean, just to make it even more clear,
If only banks would forgive loans, it would make life so much easier. You raised a valid point, Juan. Thank you.
I know I'll be doing something else, Denise. But thank you for for saying that. I'll work on my resume just in case.
So there's a business that actually received an economic injury disaster loan and a PPP, but then they applied for a larger loan. I'm not sure of who the funding source was, but they were denied. And so are loans based upon your credit score?
So a regular loan is the criteria of a regular loan. Every bank has their own criteria, but it's very similar, right? I mean, so you have to demonstrate that you can repay the loan back. So, cash flow is king. We hear that from the first days that we start in a banking career. The 5 C's of credit, but cash is king. Cash is king. So I don't know what happened to that person, why they were denied, but if they use PPP or AIDL as an excuse to deny the loan, then that doesn't make sense. I mean, if it was denied, it was for other reasons, right? Either it doesn't cash flow, the credit report have issues, things like that the regular underwriting criteria, I guess, Denise. So maybe Jane, through your group, you guys can review some of that information and clean it up, I guess, if that's the case. But they shouldn't be denied because they had a PPP and they had a EIDL loan.
Gotcha. So we have just a couple minutes left. And so just a couple of housekeeping things. I want to make sure that you all fill out the survey that was put in the chat. So make sure you fill that out because that's imperative for Indiana Black Expo to receive feedback so that they can take your comments into consideration and think of other topics and things that will help us as business owners as we continue being the backbone of our nation's economy. And so as we close things out, I'd like for each of our panelists just to leave us with a few final thoughts and words of encouragement, if you would.
Don't get overwhelmed by everything you need for these programs. There are bankers who are willing to help, small business centers, our organization is willing to help. And I think sometimes people can look at all of the information and it gets a little overwhelming. So hopefully some of the information we send out afterwards will simplify it a little bit. But being a business owner is tough enough. So hang in there and try not to get too stressed out about it.
Thank you, Michelle. Jane?
I'd say call, ask for help. There's plenty of resources and people out there willing to help and help you walk through it, whether it's our group or a group like Michelle. Obviously, what she's doing sounds very valuable for clients. There's people here who can help. If you're not a financial expert, we are. So we can walk people through that because it can be overwhelming. And Michelle's right, don't get overwhelmed, but it can be, and it's confusing and complicated but this is what we're all doing for a living. So, we can help people sort through it.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And Juan?
Yeah, I will just add to all of that please reach out to any of the three of us on this panel. I can assure you, look, we're all busy and all of those, but the reason that we're here is because we believe in these programs. We believe in helping people. We believe in helping our communities. And I tell you that personally, I'm from my role at KeyBank. So reach out. We're here to help. You should take advantage of the PPP program. I hope if everyone takes something back is if you haven't done it, please do it. It's a great tool to help your business get ready for 2021. So again, ask for help. Reach out to all of us here. You have two ladies here that are super smart. And then Denise, you're a business owner. You can also help them a lot. So thank you so much. Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for that sage wisdom. Thank you to all of our panelists. You know, as they said, don't be afraid to ask for help. Being a business owner is the most humbling experience I think any of us can ever have. And being a business owner, I know how humbling it can be. So don't be afraid to ask for help. There's no such thing as a ridiculous question or a silly question. It's a question, and it's a question that you need answered in order to make sure that this baby that you've birthed can survive. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to get help with your financials. Don't be afraid to acquire a little debt to make your business grow. It's an investment in your business. We make investments in ourselves all the time. And trust me, financial institutions are not going to give you more than you can handle. That's their job, is to help you manage your growth. So please don't be afraid to do that. So I want to thank you all for taking time out to attend today. Thank Indiana Black Expo for hosting this session. Also, once again, a special thanks to KeyBank and Delta Faucet, Visit Indy, and the Indiana Small Business Center, who are our sponsors and partners for this webinar. I'm Denise Hurd. I've been your host, and it's been a joy to be with you this afternoon. Good luck, and go out and make some money. Have a great day.